Okay, so yes, behind me right now, you can probably see, and you might have seen in some of my previous videos, that there is an entirely new desktop behind me. I've been using the same PC for a very long time, and I just wanted to test out some other stuff. I was also going to be gone for 3 or 4 days, and in the meantime of me waiting to build a new PC, I was going to be without a desktop for quite a while. No. Wait. And I needed something to edit videos on, so I decided to take that time to do something completely different. What did I do? I used a laptop. Honestly, I wanted to go ahead and try out a modern Intel laptop to get an idea of how far have they come, because to be honest with you guys, in the past, I've definitely had a bad experience on Windows when it comes to laptops. It has made me, and well, probably many other people, really avoid them as a all-in-one machine to get all of your work done. But Intel reached out to me at the perfect time and said that they would sponsor this video, sending over a laptop for me to do all of my editing, all my gaming, and all that sort of stuff for those, 4 days to a week where I just simply wouldn't have access to my desktop. It lined up perfectly, so I said yes, and here we are. What's the laptop in question? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's the Predator Helios Neo 16, and honestly, guys, even if you aren't super into laptop gaming, I think this is a very, very interesting look at where laptops have come, so I do highly suggest you stick around throughout the whole video. I also put a ton of time into this video, so if you guys could leave a comment below telling me whether you prefer laptop or desktop, as well as a like on the video, and share it with your friends, that would be highly, highly appreciated. But enough about that. Let's get into this bad boy. I mean, what are we talking about here, boys? Well, the Predator Helios Neo 16 is a 16-inch, 6.17-pound bad boy of a laptop with an i5-13500HX 14-core CPU with 6P cores and 8 E cores up to 4.7 GHz, 16 GB of DDR5 and RTX 4050, a 512 GB PCIe SSD, does come with Windows 11 Home, it has speakers, of course, which I found to be pretty decent. It comes with a mic, it does have Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.1, and in terms of I/O, it has one 3.5mm jack, so thank God, 3 USB-A 3.2, 2 USB-C with Thunderbolt 4, and 1 HDMI 2.1. It also comes with a regular LCD screen with a resolution of 1920 by 1200 at 165 Hz. But also, one thing I do want to mention is you can actually charge this over Type-C if you want to, which is so huge for doing some work on the go, as 65-watt charging over Type-C means that you don't have to bring a huge mammoth brick with you everywhere that you go, which, yeah, that's definitely a big deal. Though if you do want to bring the brick, that does have the ability to charge at 230 watts for some serious gaming. But speaking of serious, this is a serious deal, guys, because checking Best Buy right now, it's going for just $999. If you're looking at new laptops, that is a crazy low price for what you're getting, because sure, I would like to see more storage and more memory on this laptop, but it is upgradable, so you can definitely go ahead and do that later, which is something that is severely lacking on a huge amount of laptops on the market right now. So I'm really glad to see that. But if we do go ahead and compare this laptop to something that you could build yourself, it would actually set you back a lot more. How much more? Well, we're talking about a build price of $1,311, and that's not paying somebody to build it for you. That's you putting in the work yourself. So it's actually way cheaper to buy this laptop. But how was my experience using a laptop coming from an insane desktop for so long? Well, honestly, guys, it was actually pretty dang good. It surprised me quite a bit. It definitely had the capability to do everything that I needed to do, but obviously, that's not enough detail for you to understand whether or not a laptop is actually good. Let's get into those details to figure out just how good of an alternative a laptop like this can truly be. First, starting off with the build quality, honestly, it was surprisingly really good feeling to my hands. It didn't wobble a ton, it didn't have any major issues. But what about the fan noise? Because this is a huge problem with laptops for me, and here's another situation where I was actually pleasantly surprised. The fan noise when just doing regular tasks like looking around on Google Chrome or something like that, it really didn't kick in hardly at all, at least in my experience. I really couldn't hear it whatsoever, which is really, really good, because there's a lot of Windows laptops out there, guys, at least in the past, in my experience, where they've had the fans kicking on like crazy while browsing Chrome, which is just absolutely unacceptable. Thankfully, that doesn't happen here. But what about the keyboard and the trackpad? I mean, are they usable for gaming and other stuff? Honestly, it was reliable and didn't give me any issues, which is a huge plus. And likewise, the keyboard didn't blow me away, but it did the job and gave me no issues whatsoever, which is crucial, because I found that I was able to play games perfectly fine using the keyboard and honestly even trackpad depending on the game. Now for competitive games, you're going to want a mouse, but for Baldur's Gate 3, stuff like that, totally fine to use the trackpad, and I did. And speaking of games and applications, how does this thing perform? Well, I put it through the ringer and I was pleasantly surprised, but let's go ahead and take a look at those applications. How well does it perform? First, starting off with creative applications that I actually use. Here you can see the Predator Helios 16 gets a very respectable score of 854 in Photoshop and an even more impressive 558 in Premiere Pro, which, to put that into perspective, is around the amount of performance you would expect to see out of a similarly spec'd 13th gen i5 desktop, at least in my experience, which is a lot of performance. In fact, over the roughly week that I used this laptop, I did indeed edit some of my videos on it, and as you can see on screen, it's shockingly fast when it comes to things like timeline scrubbing performance, a crucial metric for finishing videos in a timely manner. Definitely something that I need in my life. But what about games? Well, I did a fair amount of gaming on this laptop, ranging from competitive games at 144 FPS or higher to RPGs with higher graphics settings, all of which ran surprisingly well at its native resolution. But the game I mainly played was Baldur's Gate 3, as I just can't seem to tear myself away from it in my free time. Now, I actually was able to hook up this laptop to a 4K HDR OLED TV while I was gone and lock the game to a pretty consistent 60 FPS throughout the majority of the second act on mostly ultra settings with the use of DLSS, which honestly was shocking, but even at the laptop's native resolution, as you can see on screen now, using the ultra settings, I got an average frame rate of 62 FPS, even in the absolute hardest area of the game, Baldur's Gate. And honestly, guys, I think what made these games play very well is because the screen itself had really good motion performance for an LCD, especially in a laptop. So overall, let's go over the pros and cons and talk about whether or not you should buy a laptop like this and who these things are actually for. So the pros would be laptops have definitely gotten much faster than they were in the past. I mean, having a 14-core CPU in your laptop today is absolutely insane. And for rendering that sort of stuff, especially when you're plugged in, it's really good now. Honestly, you could use a laptop to do everything that you would want to do and have no problems doing it. And it's also shockingly cheaper than trying to build an equivalent desktop, at least at its current price. And of course, it's also portable, which means that yes, you can bring it on a plane, you can go to another state, you can do whatever you need to do with it if you are someone who's on the go. But the cons are, well, the CPU and GPU are not upgradable, and there's a performance loss when you go on battery. Now, if you're doing basic tasks, watching video, browsing the web, all that sort of stuff, I had no issues whatsoever being on battery, and the battery life was pretty decent. However, when you're doing gaming or serious work, it should still be plugged in. But overall, do I recommend this? Who's this for? Honestly, at $999, yeah, it's a really good buy. Let's be honest. If you do choose to go buy it at Best Buy right now at $999, I honestly would have no problem recommending it whatsoever, considering that it didn't have any major flaws. But I do think this is definitely geared more towards people who are on the go. If you have the funds to build a crazy desktop computer, obviously the desktop's going to be faster, but for those of you on the go, yeah, it's a great price for a pretty dang good laptop.